Good morning, afternoon, evening, middle of the night, or for the recording if you're watching this back. Welcome to our quarterly Azure Landing Zone community call. Great to have you here. And just to remind everybody, or just to let everybody know that your regular host Jack is not with us today, unfortunately. So you have me. I'm Paul Grimley. I'm the lead program manager for Azure Landing Zone. So I'll be your host and compere today. We've got a great agenda lined up. And yeah, looking forward to being with you for the next hour. Just to remind you that this call is recorded. If you don't want to be part of that recording, please could you drop off the recording now? So everybody's aware, we will record these sessions. We do record these sessions, and we will provide you with a slide deck as well. So you'll have all the information that we shared, all the links will be embedded in there as well that you can get access to afterwards. Please don't worry about that if you miss any of the links or slides on there. We'll provide all these recordings as soon as we can afterwards. If you have a question at any point before we get started, put it in the chat. We've got some experts here who can help you and provide you with an answer. And if we can't, we'll take it offline with you and provide you with an email, or you can drop an issue in the Azure Landing Zone repo or any of the other respective repos that you want to talk about, and we will pick that up in there. You'll probably see if you engage with us, we're pretty active in responding to those. So please do, talk to us. We are listening, and you'll hear that at the end as well as we talk about some asks from you as well. And if there's something relevant to the conversation, so as we go through, we've got some great topics for you today. If you feel that you want to kind of stop, don't be frightened to come off mute if you want to come and speak to us and talk. And if we have opportunity, we'll take the question. Otherwise, if time's pressing, I may kind of politely ask if we can put that to the end, or if we can take that offline, depending on how time's going, to respect everybody's time here. But open discussion, as you should know if you've been with us before, and if not, and you're new, welcome. It's great to have you on board. All right, let's dive into the agenda for today. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the implementation options, some guidance updates that we have. We've got some new accelerators since we've last spoken to you as well. I want to talk to you about those. The public roadmap that we have, I want to give you a reminder if you're not aware of this roadmap and what we do here and how you can access that. Talk to you about what's new in Azure Landing Zone, which is obviously some of this call, but there'll be some finer details in there as well, and the importance of that what's new documentation that we keep up to date. Ian's going to talk to you about Amber, Azure Monitor Baseline Alerts, if you're not familiar with that, and give you an update on where we're at with that. We're going to talk to you about the monitoring agent deprecation updates. I know this is a hot topic in the community. We have lots of questions coming in about this. We'll be as transparent as we'll give you full transparency in what we're doing there, and provide you with updates of where we're at, to give you some planning ahead. And then Jared's going to dive into the Azure Landing Zone Terraform vNext intro and a deep dive. So that's going to kind of end off our kind of presentations. And then we're just going to turn to some asks for you, and then I'll do some wrap up at the end of that. So looking forward to being with you for the next hour. So let's get going, and it's going to be me to continue, and then we'll take it from there. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was implementation options and accelerators. There's a few kind of documentation bits and pieces on the page here. Just want to kind of navigate you through some of this. We've definitely heard feedback about the flow and what tools to use, and we're certainly having that top of mind when we're building our guidance and documentation to give you a kind of rounded experience, depending on where you are in your Azure Landing Zone journey, whether you're at the start of kind of enabling Azure, or you're a brownfield customer looking to kind of build your next workload. So if I kind of start at the top left here, where you've got the Azure Architecture Center table of contents, we've got a kind of a landing zone section in there, and we have something in there called deployment options. And that deployment options gives you kind of a guidance, an overview of all the different ways that you can go about deploying Azure Landing Zone. It's basically, how do you get started? We're certainly, again, talking about documentation and simplifying the documentation. We're looking to simplify navigation, especially this is at the architecture center. We also have cloud adoption framework documentation as well. We're looking to simplify table of contents to how they all kind of come to this single location as your source of truth for moving forward to understand how do you do your next thing in Azure Landing Zone. So if we kind of take a look at some of the kind of snippets that we've got here. So subscription vending is how you kind of would typically get going with your kind of your Azure Landing Zone at scale deployments. If you're not familiar with one of our principles, our key principles, design principles, is that subscription democratization is kind of key to that scale element. So we've built some subscription vending guidance tooling that can help you vend subscriptions quickly and efficiently, that maps to the right cost centers and accounts, etc., to get you going. Also kind of bringing on board some of those technical requirements as well that you'll need as part of onboarding those subscriptions. If we look to the cloud operating model as well, we give you some guidance on the role definitions as well that you can look into. So the workload teams and the cloud strategy teams, what those teams are, and some further documentation there as well. To the right-hand side, we talk about some of these accelerators in more detail. So platform, we've got the 3 different reference implementations that you can deploy Azure Landing Zone through the portal, through Terraform, or through Bicep. So those are the 3 different mechanisms to deploy that we support here, that you can read more about through this Architecture Center documentation. And the bottom right as well is the application landing zones. So platform landing zones is kind of this team that you're listening to now. And then if you look at the application section, there's a number of different accelerators in there. AKS, AVD, AVS. There's various different types of accelerator. These are basically to kind of do that Lego block building on top of your platform, depending on the workload that you're looking to bring to Azure Landing Zone. All right. Okay. So I touched on the roadmap. We heard loud and clear a few months ago that whilst we do these sessions, you also want to kind of have something offline to understand what we're working on, what we're considering. So we have a public roadmap that we're sharing. We recognize the popularity actually when we made this announcement. There was a lot of interest and a lot of appreciation that we're doing this. Just to give you some context with this, we update this regularly. We do this monthly at the end of the month, and we basically make sure that we're aligning. This is effectively extracting some of those high level needs and asks from our internal backlog and surfacing those to give you transparency so that you can avoid having to duplicate any efforts that we're working on to try and address things. For example, the MMA monitor agent. I'm just going to take a quick pause. I'm seeing some chat. Jared, keep me honest here. Is there anything I need to kind of call out at this point? Apologies, I'm not following the chat as well.
It's just one message so far. I think we're fine.
All right. If one of you could answer that, or Stu, if you want me to come off, if you want to come off mute, feel free. But we'll pick up that as we go. Thank you. All right. Okay. So moving on to what's new. So what's new? This is not a new concept in Azure Landing Zone. This is something we've been doing for a long time now. We just need to. We obviously want to keep reminding you this is the place to go. If you want kind of like a digestible way of absorbing what we're doing on a monthly basis, this is where to go for your updates. So please bookmark this. This is updated all the time, and we have this as part of all our criteria when we bring on new features, that we have to update this as part of that. So everybody who takes on a contribution needs to do that. And if we get an external contribution, then that's on the Azure Landing Zone team to be able to kind of surface that in here as well on behalf of that external contributor, to make sure that everybody's aware of that. Obviously, there's deeper ways that you can receive alerts on the Azure Landing Zone updates by subscribing to GitHub. this is a little less noisy for you and can give you that succinct way of understanding where we're at with our updates and what we've been up to. All right, so just turning to the Terraform space for a second. A couple of the team were fortunate to be able to fly out to San Francisco to the HashiConf this year. So Matt White and Bilal attended the conference in person, which so I'm sure it was great for them to get out in person and present. And yeah, really great feedback from that session. We had a lot of interest and a lot of great, I say, a lot of great feedback that Matt and Bilal received on the day, and we've seen some great views on this already. The link in the middle, the YouTube icon in the middle of the screen is a clickable link that will take you to that video as well. And obviously, again, as I said earlier, the slides are off. You can take. We will give you those offline, so you can take those and click through these links at your leisure. And congratulations, Matt and Bilal, on that session as well. Okay, a couple more announcements before you get bored of me, and then I'll hand over to someone else. So we have some more brownfield guidance. This has been a burning ask from many customers who want to do Azure Landing Zone, and we've had a gap in our documentation about how do you get from where you are today and how do you transition into Azure Landing Zone. Azure Landing Zone is key to all our product groups. We're more and more kind of providing visibility, and more of their development is becoming aligned from the outset. So what we're seeing, for an example, there is Amber, where we're kind of aligning closer and closer with our product team counterparts. And we are building based on the Azure Landing Zone architecture, and the ARM team, for example, have the same management group structure as their default now. So more and more of the product groups are kind of aligning to Azure Landing Zone. It's a journey. We're definitely making great progress there, and customers want to be part of this now because they recognise that the term Azure Landing Zone is coming up more and more. So please check out this brownfield guidance. There's 3 new scenarios in there to check out. They are fantastic documentation that we've written by one of our colleagues in the field, Safe. So thank you to Safe for doing these. Read them, give us some feedback, raise an issue on our repo if you've got any questions on these, and we'll happily talk to you about that if you feel that there's something that we need to add to that. But these are really welcome additions to our documentation, so I hope you enjoy. Okay, so the next one is AVNM, another acronym to add to your repository. So Azure Virtual Network Manager. We have created some Azure Landing Zone specific guidance for this. So you now have this kind of guidance as to how to move to an AVNM model. Please take a look at this. Again, same as before, give us feedback if you have any questions or follow-ups. I'm happy to talk to you about those. Okie doke. Another network related one that's been a big ask from our customers is around multi-region DNS. And multi-region is something I will circle back to with you as we close out the call. Effectively, this article describes how to integrate your private link for PaaS services with Azure DNS in a hub and spoke network architecture. So it describes how application teams can deploy Azure PaaS services in their subscriptions that are effectively only accessible privately, so they can't be accessed through the internet. So some great guidance we've done there, recognizing that there's some stringent security needs out there, and we've provided this to in response to that. Coming soon. So some of you may have heard us talk about this as SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle. This has been rebranded to Application Development Environments. So this is effectively how you move your develop your environments through the kind of the Azure Landing Zone structure. So where you've got sandbox and where you've got decommissioned and where you've got landing zone. How do you get from those? We again listen. We're always listening and always hearing from our customers on some of the challenges they face or the gaps or the kind of additional information they want from us. So we're in development. I've reviewed this initial document. It's ready for editorial, so it shouldn't be too far away now. Hopefully, in the next month or two, we'll have this guidance for you, which will talk to you about how do you get started, where do you put it, what considerations do you have, and then moving you through that flow as we move forward. All right, so I'm going to take a short break, and then I'm going to hand you over to Sasha. Sasha's got some really good insights he wants to share with you. And in fact, I think, Sasha, it was potentially this call last time where you shared something on here and it got some excitement going. So this is in response to that, to share some insights and follow up from that. So over to you, sir.
Hi there. Good day, everyone. I think we've got 3 slides, some minor updates on the policy front. One of the big ones that we did middle of this year is actually establish a policy testing framework where we've written policies to test all of our custom deny policies, because deny has quite serious impact on the environment, and we've already had we found one regression in one of the deny policies, so it's already paying for itself in terms of improving the quality and having a consistent and reliable policies going out. As what the work that was recently completed was actually just documenting all of this and writing a whole story about how it works, what you need, how to write the policy tests. At the moment, we've covered all the deny policies. We will be doing one of the deploy if not exist policies. We'll pick one and write the full story around that. And we'll look at maybe adding additional ones as it comes up being needed. But we'll write a dying one just so that people have a reference to work from in a more complicated scenario. One of the challenges we have is obviously we're doing a lot of this testing as part of our pull request process and the GitHub actions that validate the quality of everything. Dying policies obviously take really long to run the evaluation, remediate potentially resources. If you've got a SQL managed instance, you're going to be waiting at least 4 hours, right, for the resource to deploy. So doing this in as part of our normal processes is not feasible, right? So we're looking at ways to improve that. So policy testing framework link is there. It is linked in the wiki on our repo. Have a read through if this is of interest for you. It is adding value for us immediately in terms of ensuring that we don't introduce any regressions. Policy testing framework. Let's see who's next. LZ portal updates. We've done a couple of portal updates in the past quarter. This is for the portal accelerator specifically, right? So for those of you that use that, I know many of you rely on Terraform and Bicep, but a lot of folks still use the portal experience. I use it myself to quickly deploy, right, environments, just to test features and things like that. So we've added view and routing intent support. Thanks, Recep. We've added the VPN gateway active configuration. Thank you, Terry. We had some fun with that one. We fixed an issue that actually exposed another issue that was actually now become a bug that's being resolved by the engineering teams, and that is the Azure Firewall basic. When you chose Azure Firewall basic SKU and you had a VPN gateway, the IP addresses overlapped, right, by default. I mean, normally you would go and configure your own address spaces and subnets, but in this case, when we fixed that, we discovered another issue that it would actually fail, and it was the error is internal server error, which is the super helpful, very clear, know exactly what to fix. And after a whole bunch of troubleshooting, we actually found a workaround, which was basically adding a dependency to wait for one resource to finish before provisioning the next one. And we've also got engineering working in the back end to fix the issues. I see I'm not in sync with the presenter. Am I on the right slide, Paul?
You needed to take control, or I can be your slide clicker. There you go.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll navigate for you. Just tell me next slide. Is it you want to be on this one now?
Just back one, please.
This one?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks. We added support for a new region, Italy North. There's been quite a lot of demand for it. I've seen a lot of TFTs around Italy North. So thanks, Jack and Jared, for adding that. And we've integrated Amber, so the Azure monitoring baseline alerts. We've added a blade in the portal accelerator where you can configure what type of Amber alerting you want to enable, if you want to enable it, and provide relevant settings. Really sexy, really nicely done. Thanks, Jan and Aryan. We are going to present on that a bit later. Next slide, please, Paul.
Before we go on, Sasha, there was a question about EPAC with the testing. If I go back to the testing update,
Yep.
There was a question, how does this relate to EPAC, its plan? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I don't think we've talked to the EPAC team about this policy framework.
Not specifically around policy testing. We've had initial discussions in understanding how EPAC handles policy and trying to understand how we can potentially work together. So we've had some conversations around that. The policy testing framework, we haven't discussed specifically with them. We are discussing that with our policy engineering teams to see if how they can potentially leverage this. But on the EPAC side, we haven't specifically focused on the testing side.
This is Anthony friendly time zone as well, so I'm not sure if Anthony's on the call. If he is, he's welcome to come off. But Anthony, yeah, if you're on, feel free to drop in on the chat. All right. If that doesn't answer your question, Christian and Paul, feel free to follow up on the chat, and we can take it from there. But it's a great point. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. And as we've said previously, we do talk to the EPAC team. We are aligned. They've actually got some guidance coming in CAF. So yeah, we're absolutely working with them. All right. This is your last slide, I think, Sasha.
Yeah, that's my. So this is more on the policy side. So we've got two major new initiatives coming. Well, first of all, let me just pause right there and just say by the end of this week, we should be releasing a new template for GitHub issues where you will be able to submit suggestions for policies, whether they're built-in or custom or whatever. There's a nice little template that you fill in for things that you think make sense to have in Azure Landing Zone. And so I'm putting it out there. We'll obviously share that in the newsletter. We'll make a bit more noise around it, but really encourage you to please let us know your ideas, things that we're missing, things that need to be included. We're very busy trying to do the right things proactively, like you'll see in the next couple of seconds. But it doesn't work without your support. So please do let us know if you have any ideas. Jumping right in, so we've got two major initiatives going out, hopefully before the end of the year, maybe early next year. One is the backup initiative. Obviously, with all the ransomware and all of this stuff that's happening, we're taking our best practice guidance a step further in terms of backup. We're starting to now audit whether immutability is enabled on the vaults, whether it's a recovery services vault or a backup vault. We're looking at enhancing this. I don't think we'll ever enforce or deploy if not exists immutability, because obviously you can't roll that back. If you do it by accident on a huge scope, you're stuck with those resources for a really long time. But we're taking steps. So we're creating a new backup initiative. We're also going to include a policy to configure storage account backup, because that's currently missing. But what we'll do is do it tag based. So if the storage account has a specific tag, we'll automatically configure backup for that resource, because as you know, a lot of other services create storage accounts, and we don't want to just go back up everything, you know, a diagnostic storage account and all of the many storage accounts that get provisioned automatically. So we're also working with the product group. They've kind of socialized some ideas for policies that they think make sense for backup. We've kind of responded with what we think makes a lot of sense from an Azure landing zone perspective, and they're busy working on providing those. As they come out, we'll add them to this backup initiative. The next one, our team drives a lot of work around resiliency. So last fiscal year, we created a whole new program around doing assessments in terms of how resilient is your Azure environment, your workloads, how much can you tolerate failures in that environment. To that end, we're adding a new initiative that we're going to assign by default, and it's audit. So we're going to audit the resources that support it, zone redundancy, zone resilience, just so that you have some insight on your workloads and if we are using the services properly, right, for a resilience perspective, like SQL, Azure SQL, for example. Do we have geo-replication enabled? Do we have, are we sufficiently resilient to protect against outages? Are we deploying across multiple zones, etc.? The last point before I hand it back is diagnostic settings. We have many issues, and I know that this is an enormous pain. And even yesterday, someone created a new GitHub issue on the repo. We know diagnostic settings is a problem. We've known for a while. We're working with the product owner for diagnostic settings. We were waiting for a new feature for Azure Policy to be released, which is called versioning, right? So it's a built-in versioning capability for policy, which allows you to pin to a specific version of a policy and not be impacted by breaking changes potentially, right? So we were waiting for that, but that looks like it's delayed due to whatever reasons. So we are now looking for a way forward in the short term to not be dependent on versioning, to get out a complete and robust set of diagnostic setting policies for all the services that support it. So please bear with us. I know it is a huge pain. Lots of requests for this. It is coming. We are working on it. In fact, we have a meeting later this week on it. And hopefully we have a way forward before the end of the year. And that's me. Back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Sasha. Just before we go on the diagnostic settings, I think a couple of things to point out, and thanks as well to Kemley and Luke in the respective product groups for their support on this. There is potentially a way that we can do this, Sasha, that I need to share with you. So we're constantly talking to them about how we can do this and minimize. We've got front of mind minimizing the changes that need to happen in a customer environment when we're trying to make these decisions. So please do think that I do appreciate sometimes we can't do that, but we are definitely trying to make it so that there's not two hops. If we can make it one hop, how do we make it one hop? And the other thing is to kind of touch on Sasha's point that the policies that we have are custom today. We want to make them use we want to use the built-in policies, which are what are looking to be developed, and that's what we're working closely to try and get those moved forward. So, yeah. All right, Sasha, thank you for your time. There is one question for you actually, or one kind of observation maybe worth calling out. So the private DNS records policy would be a great one to have, i.e. allowing people to make PaaS services and having the DNS automatically added to the hub private DNS. Is that already included by now?
So we do the private DNS zones right now. I need to maybe just read through this and
sure.
Respond.
We need to take that offline. That's no problem.
Yeah.
And there's another one that you can take offline on chat as well.
Or CSPM. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Sasha.
Just on that note, I see that that's Defender specific. Please be aware. You know that a lot is changing in the Defender space, right? So they've made some really big strategic direction changes in the past 3-4 months. So a lot of those policies are going to be changing. Even what we deploy by default and configure by default will probably have some significant changes coming down the line. So please be aware. We do enable CSPM by default in our policies right now. But please be warned, there is big changes coming. We'll know All the details by April next year.
Will help you navigate. And finally, Sasha, one thing, policy refresher in the last month of Q2 refresh, right? So we should be releasing some updates towards the end of this month.
It might come out first week of Jan because it is Christmas season.
Because of the festive season.
Of
course, yeah. So look out for that. Maybe a late Christmas present for you. We'll have something for you in the very near future. All right, so turning to Ian now. Ian, I don't know whether you want to take control or you want me to run the slides for you.
Let me see if I can take control here. Yeah.
All right.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'll just take a few minutes to talk about EMBA, some updates, some things that we have on the roadmap. First of all, if you've been following EMBA for a while, before it was called ALZ Monitor, now in a new space, and we're GA. So that's the first great news that we can share with you. We are GA. We are actually working on many things, and one of them was really to get that integration of EMBA with Azure Landing Zones. So you heard Sasha talking about it a bit. The portal received some updates. So yeah, I have a new blade that allows you to deploy the EMBA alerts, the Azure Monitor Baseline alerts that we have for Azure Landing Zones. Now, I must say, well, we'll talk about it in a moment when I talk about the roadmap. Let's first focus on some of the updates that we've had over the past couple of weeks. First of all, as I alluded to earlier, we moved to a new repo. The Azure Monitor Baseline alerts that we have, the ALZ pattern, is not directly inside the same repo on GitHub as Azure Landing Zones. So we have an own repo where we maintain all of those Azure Landing Zone alerts, and by the deployment, we pull those things in, right? So that migration is finished. We have that integration now with the ALZ portal. We made some changes in the way that we deploy the server's health alerts. Before you had to deploy everything or nothing. We actually now have that possibility to be selective, right? If you don't want the security alerts, you can disable them. If you don't want other alerts of server's health, you can disable them. So you have that flexibility to decide and see what is the best fit for you. So thanks, Bruno, for that. He worked on that to get that implemented. During this entire process, of course, of this migration from one repo to the other, we made some changes under the hood as well. Before we were completely in Bicep, we're now aligned to an ARM deployment. So we had a lot of documentation updates. So thank you, Brian, for bringing those in. We have some additional guidance to help you deploy server's health alerts and how to deploy only the server's health alerts. Again, some documentation and some guidance updates there. The action group is something that we've been working on. You will see when we're talking about the roadmap, there are more things coming. But for now, we already have multiple email addresses that you can select. So once you deploy this, it deploys an action group. And within an action group, you're not limited to one email address anymore. You can just add in the amount of email addresses that you want. Keep that one in mind. In the next slide, we'll talk about what else is coming for action group, because email is not the only thing that we do there. So there's some new alerts. Thanks, Alex, for implementing those. We got some new alerts for application gateway, load balancers, express route ports. And actually, there are some more. I think if we go to the next slide, we see that in the roadmap, we have some alerts for front door, both classic and the new CDM profile RP that we deploy as well. Same with app source and traffic manager. These are actually not on a roadmap anymore. They are implemented. I think very recently we made that update, so you can now have those landing zone initiative v2 directly deployed. And this is both if you deploy this as a standalone environment, right? You can deploy EMBA as a standalone solution, or you can use the integration with the ALZ portal deployment. So in both cases, you will get the latest alerts here. Now, some interesting things that we're working on. We are working on decoupling the service health initiative and the action group just to make it easier and more flexible, right? We had now a dependency. So if you would want the connectivity policy set definition, right? You would also need to deploy the service health policy set definition just because there were some dependencies between those initiatives. We're moving those dependencies so everything is more flexible and you can really pick and choose the policy set definitions that you want to deploy. If you only want connectivity, perfectly fine. If you only want service help, again, perfectly fine. So we have some, we had in our existence conditions in the policies, right, that really help you with that compliance check and to make sure where you want to deploy these alert rules. And they were nice, but it could be a bit more extensive, right? To really check for thresholds, for other parameters. So we're doing a major update there to really help you navigate that compliance drift, right? If someone goes in and changes like a threshold for something, that you're being notified and that you could actually remediate that. There will be some portal updates coming, right? With all of the new services and new things that we're deploying. We're going to need some portal updates that will allow you to select those flexibility options as well. And one of those options really is the work that we're doing with action groups and the notification flexibility, right? As mentioned in the previous slide, currently we can do multiple email addresses in the action group, but we're actually working on including things like logic apps, webhooks, ARM roles, etc. Right? So really get that full scale flexibility and pinpoint it, whatever you're using. Right? If you want to use webhooks, perfect. Deploy Amba with a webhook. Now, this is not on the roadmap here yet, but it is coming after that, right? We're first implementing this flexibility, and then the next step would be to bring your own. That we say, you have your action group already? Perfect. Let us know which one it is, and we will make that connection here. So we're not deploying multiple action groups if you already have it in place. That's the next step. After this flexibility, we'll work on bringing your own action group for that and alert processing rules, etc. Now, last item here, we already know that you can deploy this in a brownfield standalone environment, right? We have documentation for that, and I will share those links in a moment, or you also see it here on the screen. We're also working on integrating Amba with the Bicep and Terraform deployments of Azure Landing Zone. So that is something that is coming again in the near future. I really expect most of these things to either land in December. We all know December is a bit of a strange month, so it could be that it's early January that most of these things will land, so that you're aware of that. Okay, Paul, I think it's back to you.
Thank you, Ian. Just to kind of touch on something in the chat that came up whilst you were talking, Ian. So the drift detection. So Stu was asking about how do you detect drift detection, but you've actually self-healed there, Stu, which I love because you found the documentation that it actually isn't mentioned here. This is so Ian, keep me honest here, but the existence condition that you refer to in this screen is about understanding if an alert. So for example, if you have an alert within a subscription and you change that threshold on that alert in that subscription, this is what Ian is referring to here. But also Stu has shared something that we haven't put on the slide, which is some documentation that Bruno had created, which is about how to update to the latest release as well. Maybe for the offline edition, Ian, we could put that in to the slide if you wouldn't mind. And one other thing as well that isn't on here is that there is a what's new in that patterns ALZ section. So we are, again, GitHub can be noisy, and if you want to digest, we're replicating what we do in the Azure Landing Zone repo into the pattern that we do in Azure Landing Zone. And again, if you're new to Amba, you may be asking the question, why is this in a separate repo? Why is it its own entity and own repo? The reason being is Amba has become, thanks to the success of it through the Azure Landing Zone pattern, has become a bigger and broader solution that can encompass more alerts, more recommendations from across the entire Azure stack. So Azure Landing Zone is going to become a small part of that, and at the moment it's the leading pattern. But there's another team working on building out that broader observability journey. So really exciting times for Amba. I'm really looking forward to how that's developed, and really proud of the team for all the great work they've done. So congratulations to everybody there. All right, so just back to me for a second for the next topic, and then it's a Terraform piece with Jared. So just want to briefly touch on this Azure Monitor agent, the legacy agent that we have, and the deprecation that's been announced that's planned for August 2024. We've had many questions raised. In fact, we've had support issues raised on this. We don't own this. We are a facilitator for this, and we have a number of asks that we are putting into not only the team who own MMA. If I jump to the next slide, I think we might have some more. But we're not. We don't own MMA. We facilitate scaling this, and we are going back to the MMA, the AMA product team and the PM in that team. And we're also working with solutions that then leverage MMA as well, because each of those solutions need to have a kind of a story as to how they go from MMA to AMA. Because the easy thing for us to do is just go and change the portal and then apply AMA. That doesn't help a lot of you here, because you could be brownfield customers, and how does that impact you? So we're really trying to keep each of those solution owners honest on what's the migration guidance, what's the automation that we can do here, have you got scale policies that can help us, how do you clean up your old environment, and all these questions we're asking of multiple solution owners across different time zones. Take their time. And also recently we have been talking to the product group about coexistence. So to share with you what we will be doing moving forward, coexistence was something that was in the product docs, and then it was then kind of not front and center. So we've worked with the product group to get the coexistence statement in the native AMA product guidance that then we can kind of refer to. So we now have that. And what that effectively means is we can then build on top of that commitment that the product group have said, yeah, you can have coexistence. We are effectively looking at having MMA and AMA working side by side, and we're working through data collection and avoiding duplication of alerts being ingested by each of the agents. All of this is, to this sort of sub bullet here on the first point, it's complex. There's a lot to do. And we are asking a lot of questions of each of those product teams here. So we are looking at various things here to drive this forward. So actually, Ian is working with me on this piece, and and Sasha to kind of bring this together and have a plan that we can then go and execute against. And where we can, we'll try and transition to AMA or an alternative. There may be some cases like Defender for Cloud where we may have to remain on MMA until they provide the agentless capabilities, which means that they will have to have that kind of coexistence in place. So the second point, we've had policies fixed that are hard coded as well. So we recognized the deployment was East US, and that this was causing some problems with kind of some of these built-in policies. So we've managed to address that now. So that has been moved. So we've been doing lots of work there. And then finally to that point, Defender for Cloud is the last piece in the puzzle what I referred to. So how do we get them to move to AMA, or when are they going to be ready? So we're working extremely closely. We know this is something that is being asked a lot from our customers. We are effectively kind of being a proxy to a lot of this. We want to get this right for everybody, all our customers, all our Azure Landing Zone customers. And that's why it's taking time, because we have to get this right, especially for our brownfield customers who will already have this in place. What services are you using out of what you've deployed in your existing deployment, and how do we transition you from that? And each customer is going to be different as to what they use, and we need to make sure we're kind of thinking through all those different scenarios. Okay, Jared, I'm going to spin over to you now. Feel free to take control, sir, and then over to you. I'm not sure if Luke's joining you today. I don't think he is, but just yourself today.
It's just me today. Yeah.
Looking forward to some Terraform updates from you, and thank you for taking over and filling in for Matt White, who can't be with us today. He's on holiday somewhere.
No problem. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a bit of an update on the Terraform VNet module update. So we've touched on this in the past, but I just want to give you a quick overview on what's happening there. Am I controlling the slides? Okay. Moved on to the next one.
Yep,
Okay, hopefully
it's
you
on
can see
the
the next
ALZ
slide. Yeah,
Terraform module v next.
Okay, all right. Okay, sorry. This happens to me every time. I'm not sure where I am. Okay, so yeah, what we're doing. So we have the monolithic enterprise scale landing zone module at the moment, which does everything. It does networking, it does management resources, it does management groups, it does policy, it does role assignments, it does everything, right? So we're looking at how we can support people who want to customize what they're doing and us be a little bit less opinionated about what people deploy. So we want to give people the building blocks to build up their landing zone, basically. And if they want to have a different management group structure, we make it easy for them to do that, basically. So this is one part of that. This is the ALZ module, which builds out the management groups, the policy, and the role assignments. So it's just that management group structure and the policies that are assigned on that structure. And then everything else around that will be, you'll compose it together into however you want to have it. So there's some links there to link through to the different modules. One thing to be aware of is we've to try and simplify the code of the new module, we've actually taken the complex logic and put it into a Terraform provider. You'll see this in the demo in a bit, but this is the link to the provider here. So yeah, so how do you actually use it? So basically, to build out what you have today in the enterprise scale module, you're going to compose modules together in the future. You can already do this to a degree, so you can turn off the functionality to have management resources and networking, and already use our existing modules to compose together, and just use our existing module for the management group structure. But the plan going forward is to have that, and then we'll provide examples. So if you want to use it how it was before, we'll provide examples of how to compose those modules together. So here we've got just one example of how you might compose it together using these 4 different modules that we've got. You'll notice that the naming of these modules doesn't necessarily fit a good naming convention. We are working on that. So with the Azure Verified Modules initiative, all these modules here, so the ALZ Management Hub Networking, VNet Gateway, they'll follow the same naming pattern as the ALZ module up here, and they'll have the same testing and follow the same standards as our AVM modules going forward. So you will see that coming soon. There's a little example here which you'll be able to see of what that composition looks like. I've also, on the previous slide, there is a link to an example. So can you use it now? So the answer is yes, with a caveat. The caveat being this amazing animation. It is version 0.0 something at the moment, so it is subject to change. So I wouldn't use this for any production scenarios, but we really want people to start looking at it and give us feedback. So raise issues or pull requests in GitHub for us. Just give us as much feedback as you can. It'd be really useful to find problems early on before we go to GA. So we already have some things that we need to bring into the module that aren't there yet. So it's obviously any feedback that you give us, we'll take that into account and bring those improvements in. Subscription placement is one of the things that is available in the current module but isn't built into the new one yet, so we want to include that. And then the migration path as well. So if you're a customer or a CSP that's delivering landing zones using our enterprise scale module, obviously this is a significant change, right? It's a new module, it's got new state behind it. How are you going to migrate from the old module to the new one? So we want to provide guidance and ideally some automation around that as well. So that's on the roadmap as well. And there's a lot more documentation that we need to add. So we need to provide you with more examples of how to use it, more detailed documentation around the usage. And also we want to provide you that end-to-end example of deploying a whole landing zone. And we're going to add that into the Terraform accelerator. So that'll be coming as well. So I'm going to do a demo now. So I'm going to see if I can share. Just give me a second. So hopefully you can see my VS Code there. Okay. So I'm going to just like talk through a high level example of how to use it. So in this case here, I want to use some custom archetypes. I don't want to use the out of the box archetypes. I want to use my own custom ones. So I've created a library. If you're familiar with the existing module, you'll recognize some of these, this folder structure here. So I've just got the root archetype, which I've just copied and pasted basically. And then I've created a custom archetype, which I've put in here. And then in my provider block for the ALZ provider, so this is the new provider that I was talking about, there are some settings that you can optionally supply to this provider. One of them here is to tell it not to use the built-in archetypes. So I've turned that off, and I've told it just to use my custom library. You can see here this is an array or a list, so you can actually pull library folders as well in here and build up a library based on multiple file sets. You can actually use the built-in library with custom libraries as well, so you can compose those things together. In my example here, I've just created I'm just using my custom library and not another one. So what does it look like in terms of using that? So this is the reference to the new module. So this is the ALZ module. You can see here I've got two. Essentially, these are two groups with the relevant policies assigned to them. So I've in the case of my root management group, I'm just applying my tenant ID, so it knows to use the tenant root group management group as its parent. And then I've given it an ID, whatever I want to call it, and a display name. And then I'm telling it which archetype to use. So in this case, this is this root archetype here. And then I've got to give it a location as well, a default location for deploying resources inside there. And then for my custom one, I'm giving it the parent is actually this one here. So I'm just referencing that module and getting the management group name, which is output from that module. I'm giving it an ID, a display name, and I'm telling it to use my custom archetype here. So that's referring to this name here. So then when I run this, I'm just going to run a Terraform plan. And what it's going to do behind the scenes is it's going to go off, and there's a couple of data sources that are inside the new module. It's going to call those data sources. They're going to do all the complex work of looking for built-in policies that are built into Azure. It's going to query those and policy sets as well. It's going to compose all of those policies together that are defined in my archetype, my policy definitions, as well as my policy assignments and the role definitions as well. So if I've got any roles that need to be assigned for those policies, it's going to compose all those together and then just give me a very simple way of using those here. So this module is actually going to do the policy assignments. So I'm not going to like wait around and watch this, but basically this is going to give me a plan that's going to create some management groups. It's going to create some policy definitions, some policy set definitions, some assignments. It's going to compose all that together, and it's it's quite straightforward here. And I can build, I could expand out this hierarchy. I've got a hierarchy of 2 here, so it's not a great demo, but I could have quite a complex hierarchy of management groups if I want to here. So just wanted to show you whilst I'm here as well, like what the new module actually looks like. For those familiar with the existing,
Jared, sorry, just a time check. We've got 4 minutes left. I wonder if you can wrap up in a couple of minutes. So sorry to speed you. I know this is important, but just close out.
No problem. Yeah, I'm just finishing now. Yeah. Okay. So just quickly, I want to show you, like, this is the entirety of the new module. If you compare that to, if you're familiar with the existing module, which is many, many thousands of lines of code, it's a significant simplification for anybody that's contributing to this module. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Really appreciate you running through that. Sorry to pressure you on time. Let me get the deck back up and try and skip where I fail, trying to quickly skip to the right slide. Seconds. I think this is it. All right. Can you see the ask from the community slide just to check? Slide 27.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So just a couple of asks from the community. So we have a couple of surveys that you probably heard throughout this call that everything that we do is based on feedback we hear. So please do keep it coming. We want to hear from you. So there's a couple of specific things. The last call, I think we touched on multi-region. We've now got a survey. I think some of you have responded to this already. If you haven't, please help us out and respond to this. We want to know your thoughts on multi-region support for out the box. So when you go to Azure Landing Zone from the get-go, what do you need that you feel isn't there today? So please go and fill that out. That would be super helpful. We've got about a week to run on that survey if you could fill that in for us. Also, a second survey that we have is we want to know how you're deploying your workloads. How do you, so you heard me talk about the Lego blocks of the landing zone accelerator, so like AVD, AVS. How do you go and deploy your workloads in your organization? So if you could complete that survey for us, apparently it takes 2 minutes, I'm told by Ben, who created this survey, then please fill that out for us. All right, okay, I recognize we're really short on time, 2 minutes remaining. I know we always try and pack a lot in here, but we're conscious we want to download to you as much as we can. Sasha, Ryan, Jared, is there anything in the chat that I need to call out specifically, or does anyone want to quickly come off mute for anything that we need to touch on? Whilst you're coming off, I'll just jump to that. So just to let you know, next community call is the 11th of March. If you click that link, it will take you to that. I think Jack updated this last night, so it should reflect that newer invite if you want to click on that to get the next one in your diary. Just to let you know that this will be back on a more America's friendly time zone, as you may know now, if you follow these calls, that they'll be going, they'll be flip-flopping from kind of supporting the APAC and MEA time zones to America's between the two. All right, did anyone have any questions? I've got 1 minute and then we'll close out. Doesn't look like it. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for the hour. I hope it was useful to you. If there's any feedback, please let me know. Please let us know. We're always listening, and have a great break if you're managing to get some downtime. And looking forward to seeing you in the new year with some fresh ideas, and see you in March, if not before. Thank you. Bye-bye.